What's up, YouTube? This is David Sarche representing Christ Center Mental Health, coming up with another video for today. And then after this, I'm gonna be done making videos for the rest of the day. But I just wanted to make one more video. Um, as you can tell, the title of this video is "How to Identify Mental Illness in a Loved One." And I know this is something that a lot of people want to know because it's people are when you have a concern that a loved one of yours, like a relative or a friend, may have mental illness. Like, you want to know, like, does this person have mental illness? Like, and that way you can better understand why they're doing the stuff that they're doing, and once you understand what they're doing, like, you can know what to do to help them. Like, it always helps to actually understand where someone's coming from, why they're doing what they're doing. Like, because then you don't understand, like, you're not gonna know how to help them. But yeah, I'm gonna. So with this, I'm gonna list off some symptoms specifically about three different mental disorders: clinical depression, bipolar, and schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. And I'm going to list off some of the symptoms for those. And like, I know there's other mental illnesses out there, but these are the three common ones that a lot of people have. So I'm just going to list off these, like, and yeah, and as you can tell as I go through this, there's a lot of overlap between these three mental illnesses or four mental illnesses. You like because schizoaffective disorder is separate from schizophrenia. It's a subset of schizophrenia, but schizoaffective disorder is like a mixture of both bipolar and schizophrenia put together. So, yeah. So, anyways, so first up, I'm going to list off some of the things about depression, some of the symptoms to look for to see if someone has clinical depression. The first symptom is they have loss of interest in things they normally are interested in. So, say for instance, the person is like very passionate about teaching, or very passionate about reading, or very passionate about philosophy or theology, or science, or like whatever, like math. Like, they're really passionate about math, or they're really passionate, or they have a really big interest in comic books, or they have a really big interest in bike riding, or they whatever, you name it, like whatever they're passionate about. And then all of a sudden, like, you notice that they just stopped doing the things that they're passionate about, and they have no interest in it out of nowhere. That if that happens, I mean, granted, there needs to be more than just one symptom to determine whether or not someone has one of these disorders. But if they do just abruptly stop doing the things that they love to do, then maybe you should, like, ask them some questions and, like, be concerned. Don't automatically assume that they are clinically depressed, like, but just be on the lookout. Like, just watch them. Um, they also Another thing, they tend to isolate from family and friends. Now, yes, this is different than if they always isolate. Like, if they're just a introverted person, then they're probably not depressed. Some people are just introverted. If they're introverted, then you have nothing to worry about. But if they are normally very sociable, they talk to their family, they talk to their friends, and they're very sociable, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they just, like, start isolating. They're not talking to anybody. They just lock themselves up in their room, and they're in their room all day, and they're not, like, talking to anybody, and they're ignoring their phone, and, like, that's a red flag. But yeah, also, they have really sensitive feelings. Like, if their feelings, if you sense that everything you say to them is like their emotions are really raw, and, like, everything you say to them is like a potential trigger to them all of a sudden, that's another red flag. Like, you should watch out for that. Like, if you notice that you're walking on eggshells, and because everything you say is like triggering them, making them upset, then that's a good sign that they might be depressed. Um, Also, if they're sleeping way too much, if they're sleeping way too much, then that's a pretty big sign that they're probably depressed. I mean, sometimes I mean it might it, that's a toss up though, because some people just like to sleep. So if they're sleeping way too much, like when I say sleeping way too much, they say the average amount of sleep that an average person needs is like 6 to 8 hours of sleep. But if they're sleeping like 12 to 15 hours a day, I mean, like that's a cause to be concerned. Like, because that's way over the average amount of sleep that one needs to get. Now, there could be other factors. What if they're medicated? What if they're overly medicated? If they're overly medicated, then they're probably going to sleep longer too. Or what if I mean, there's many different factors that you got to look into. Don't just automatically assume that they're depressed if they sleep way longer than 8 hours. I mean, yeah. Um, if they're sluggish, like if they're moving really slowly and like they're just like low energy, like that could be a sign of depression, or it could also be a sign that they're overly medicated as well. So but if you see them being really sluggish, then pay attention to them and take concern. Um, they're not talkative. Now, again, this goes along with what I said earlier about them isolating. Like, if you notice that they usually do talk to people, and all of a sudden they just stop talking and they're silent all the time, that's a cause for concern. But if they're introverted, they're not really talkative in general, and they don't really talk to people at all, or not, or they're a person of few words, as the saying goes, then it's probably normal. But if they talk and they do talk to people and they're very sociable, and all of a sudden they stop talking, then that's a cause for concern. Um, Also, they have a preoccupation with death or suicidal ideation. Like if they're constantly talking about death, and they're like kind of like obsessing over death, or they're talking about they want to kill themselves, that's a big sign. That's a huge red flag that they're probably depressed. So be on the lookout for that as well. All right, so that's the symptoms for depression. If you like, yeah. Now moving on to the symptoms for bipolar disorder. Um, Symptoms for bipolar disorder. Number one, they have extreme mood fluctuations. Like their moods go up, like go from like skyrocketing way up to like mania. Like they're excessively euphoric, and then it drops down abruptly to like really bad depression, and then it goes right back up to really excessive euphoria, then it drops back down to depression again, or they get angry or whatever. Like if they notice these excessive mood swings that they're having, like that's probably a cause for concern too. um they tend to have delusional and or paranoid thinking, and this usually happens for bipolar people. This usually happens when they're in the manic phase. If they get really big mania, they could become very delusional, or they can become very paranoid. And if that happens, I mean, you could tell if someone's being delusional. If someone's delusional and they're like thinking that they're part of the CIA when they actually work as a mail carrier, and they work as a mail carrier, but they think that they're working for the CIA, then that's obviously a delusional thought, and you should take concern. Or if they're thinking that that ninjas are coming after them and they need to hide in their closet to make sure the ninjas don't um, attack them or know where they're at. That's paranoid. I mean, that's also delusional thinking too. But like that's paranoia, and if they're paranoid, it should be obvious. You should know what to look for with what's a delusional thought and what's a paranoid thought. But yeah, when they are manic, they can have hallucinations. This isn't guaranteed. A lot of bipolar people that go into mania don't have hallucinations, but it can happen. And when they get a full blown mania, they can have some hallucinations. And if that happens, if you see them looking at something and you don't see what they're looking at, and you ask them what are they looking at, and they say, "Oh, there's a cat right there doing something funny," and you look over there, you don't see a cat, they're obviously hallucinating, and you need to take concern. Um, they're either getting too much sleep or they're not getting enough sleep. Now, this depends on their mood. Like if they're in really high mania, they're probably going to get very little sleep for an extended period of time. So if you notice them going weeks with only very little sleep, then they're probably manic. Or if you see them going if you see them sleeping for 30 hours a day, or then they're probably depressed. So you need to be on the lookout for that too. Um, Also, they have rapid thoughts and or what I put? They have rapid thoughts and or speech. So they're talking really fast, and they're and sometimes usually when they're talking really fast, it's because their thoughts are moving really fast. And if you notice that their thoughts are moving, if you notice that they're talking really fast and their thoughts are moving really fast, that's cause for concern because they might be getting into hypomania or mania. Yeah. That they have difficulty. Another sign is that they have difficulty concentrating. Like if you notice, you're talking to them and they are think that you could tell that they're thinking about something else, or they're having trouble focusing on the conversation, or they're having focusing reading a book, or they're having trouble anything. They're having trouble focusing on anything, and they can't concentrate. That's a cause for concern. Um, they have memory lapses. Again, this is common with people bipolar. That they go into deep depression. They can have memory lapses where they don't remember what's going on while they're in depressed state. Or the same thing can happen when they're manic. They become manic and then they don't remember what they did when they were manic. They're arrogant. They can have arrogant. They can be very arrogant, especially when they're manic. Also, when they're manic, they can be either too confrontational, and when they're depressed, they can be too timid. But yeah. So those are the symptoms for bipolar. Oh, and I guess I skipped. I actually missed a couple things for depression. A couple more symptoms for depression is that they're not doing daily activities, like they're not brushing their teeth or showering or changing their clothes or like doing daily activity. They're not doing daily activities. And then they could overeat or starve themselves, and they can also be too timid. And that's the symptoms for depression. Um, but yeah, now on to some symptoms for schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. The first symptom for schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder is that they see hallucinations. For instance, when I hallucinate, I see animals that aren't there. I've experienced I'll see cats walking around, and my wife will look at me and be like, "Honey, there's no cats there." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" There's for instance, before a few months ago, one night I thought I saw a cat in the apartment. We don't own a cat, but I thought I saw a cat in the apartment, and I got up from bed and I poured a bowl of milk, and I put the bowl of milk down on the floor. My wife was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I'm giving the cat some milk." And she was like, "There's no cat." And I was like, "Yeah, there is." And I got into this really big argument with my wife, telling her that there's a cat right there, and I was petting the cat, and then like I ended up my wife proved it to me. She took a picture of the cat, and she didn't prove it to me at that moment, but because when she showed me the picture, I still saw the cat in the picture. And so I was like, the cat's right there. But then, like later on, a couple of days later, she showed me the picture, and there was no cat in the picture. That's when I realized that I was hallucinating. So when people have schizoaffective disorder, they do have a big tendency to hallucinate. But they also people have schizoaffective or schizophrenia also have delusional and paranoid thinking. Like for instance, I remember there was one time before I met my wife. I was actually hospitalized for this. I had just returned back to Colorado from New Jersey, and I had this episode where I thought that it's been biblically prophesied for me to assassinate Donald Trump. And I even made a YouTube video where I was talking about that. And I was going on and on about how it's been biblically prophesied for me to assassinate Donald Trump. And I was going on saying this stuff. I ended up getting hospitalized. I came down from the maniac episode and I got really depressed and I decided to go to turn myself into the hospital. And I was in the hospital for like a week or so after that. But I also get paranoid thoughts. I don't really get paranoid thoughts. Sometimes I do, but I can't really remember the last time I had a paranoid thought, so I can't really think of anything specifically for that. Um, Also, another thing, people that with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder tend to not sleep enough, especially with schizoaffective, because, like I said, schizoaffective is a mixture of bipolar and schizophrenia together. So, with people with schizoaffective disorder, they can still go into manic phases, and when they go into manic phases, they tend to not sleep that much. Yeah. So, and also, either being too energetic or being too sluggish. And again, this goes along with with our moods. So if I'm like really if someone is really manic, then they're going to be really energetic and they're going to be moving around a whole lot. They're going to be really animated and like they're going to be like on cloud nine pretty much. And then someone who's really depressed, they can be moving around really slowly and very sluggishly, and they're gonna be low energy. Like um, they have a tendency. People with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder have a tendency to isolate from family and friends, and this is very common, specifically with schizophrenia. They tend to isolate themselves. They tend to stay away from family and friends. They tend to, not just family and friends, though. I don't know why I just put family and friends. People with schizophrenia tend to isolate from everyone. They don't want to talk to anybody. They stay away from people altogether. They lock themselves up in their house and they don't talk to anybody, like for a long time too. Um, People with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder also tend to have an inflated ego or tend to be very arrogant. Um, and so if you, yeah, so um, they also their emotion also people with schizoaffective disorder, their emotions tend to go from extreme mania to extreme depression as well, just like bipolar. Um, People with schizoaffective disorder or schizophrenia exhibit risky behaviors such as overspending, excessive gambling, sexual promiscuity, or intentionally putting oneself in dangerous situations. So if you see someone putting themselves in dangerous situations constantly, that's probably a cause for concern. Like I wouldn't say probably, that is a cause for concern. Like I'd be very wary if I knew someone who was doing that. Also, another thing is that they tend to be very talkative. Like and part of that they have part of the reason why they're very talkative is because they have rapid thoughts going on in their brain, and they got it's like a I heard the analogy one time said that they it's like when you turn on a water faucet and the water just comes shooting out. That's how it is when you have rapid thoughts. The words just come shooting out of your mouth. Like yeah. Also, they're either too timid or too confrontational too. Like if you notice they're constantly being confrontational with people, or if you notice they're constantly being like backing down from people when they should be confrontational, then that's a cause for concern. But yeah, so that's pretty much like there's way more symptoms to be looking out for, but these are like basic guidelines or basic these are basic things to look for. Like if you notice any of these symptoms in people that in your loved one, if you notice any of these symptoms in your loved one, then it's probably a cause for concern, and you probably should talk to them about maybe they possibly have a mental illness. But don't just assume they have a mental illness. Never diagnose someone with a mental illness yourself. Like just like I would never say someone should self-diagnose themselves, yeah, you should never diagnose someone either. What if you have a cause for concern thinking that they're mentally ill, have them see a psychiatrist, a licensed professional psychiatrist, and let the psychiatrist evaluate them, and then let them determine whether or not they have a mental illness. And if they have a mental illness, then the psychiatrist will determine what kind of treatment he would want to give this person. Like, so I would always say go talk to a psychiatrist. Have the person talk to a psychiatrist. Don't try and take matters into your own hands and try and determine what this person has yourself. um but yeah, so I hope this video helps someone out there better understand their loved one and why they're doing the things they're doing. And as always, like, give me a like if you like this video, and share this video if you want, and don't forget to subscribe. And also I was gonna say, in case you haven't known already, I do have a Christ-centered mental health discussion Facebook group now. I'm gonna link that group in the description box so you guys can join that group if you want to. It's a pretty good group. It's for my subscribers to interact with each other and to interact with me, and to also give me content ideas for future videos. Um, it's not a debate group, so don't think you're going to go in that group to try and debate with people, because it's not a debate group. It's just a group for my subscribers to interact with each other and with me, and to give me content ideas. Like, it's not a debate group. I can't. If you want a debate group, if you want to join a debate group, there's plenty of debate groups out there on Facebook for you to join. This group is not one of them. But also so if you want to join the group, like, I'm gonna link the group in the description box so you guys can join it. Also, I have a blog site. Um, if you want, you can check out my blog. I'm doing a series right now on my blog where I'm critiquing Christopher Hitchens' book God Is Not Great: How Religion Poisons Everything. I just finished chapter 3. Next week I'm going to do chapter 4. So yeah, and then after I finish Christopher Hitchens' book, the next book I'm going to critique is Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion. But yeah, and then also I'm on Twitter now, so I'm going to link my Twitter profile in the description box for you to check out. Um, it's yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter, and then also I'm on Tumblr as well. So I'm gonna link my Tumblr account too, so you can follow me on Tumblr too. I'm actually very active on Tumblr and Twitter, so yeah. Anyways, have a good day. This video is actually longer than I was expecting it to be, so I'm gonna end it now. So have a good day. God bless you, and deuces.